Hey everyone, this is your stimulus check update, second stimulus check update and stimulus package update for Monday, September 28th. This video is for those of you on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, and VA benefits, and for anyone else wondering about the second stimulus check, first stimulus check, and stimulus package negotiations. In this video, I'm going to be going over the following topics. First of all, Nancy Pelosi has said that she's hopeful that they can come to a deal and that talks actually resume between her and Steven Mnuchin. In addition to this, I'm going to be talking about Mark Cuban, who called for a $1,000 bi-weekly stimulus payment until the end of November. Next, I'm going to be talking about the second stimulus check timeline if they can actually reach a deal. And then last, I'm going to be talking about the first stimulus check. There are two deadlines, one of which is this week, and I'm going to be quickly talking about those two deadlines. If this is your first time to my channel, thank you so much for watching. My name is Justin, and I do stimulus check updates and give financial advice. And if you are one of my subscribers, welcome back. Thank you once again so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified each and every time I upload a new video. And if you find this content helpful, please hit the like button so that YouTube will share it with others. So let's talk first of all about the second stimulus check and the stimulus negotiations that are going on. As I talked about last week, the House of Representatives is working on a $2.4 trillion stimulus package that would include $1,200 stimulus checks for individuals and $1,200 stimulus checks for dependents. At least I believe it's going to be $1,200 for dependents. It could be $500, but I'm leaning towards $1,200 because that's what was in the HEROES Act. Those of you on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, and VA benefits would be eligible for this $1,200 stimulus check as part of the package that the House of Representatives is coming up with. We don't really have many details yet, but there were a lot of good provisions in this plan, including rental assistance, eviction moratoriums, renewing the unemployment benefits that expired back in July, as well as a bunch of other provisions. So Nancy Pelosi and Steven Mnuchin have been the main negotiators for the two sides. Nancy Pelosi for the House of Representatives and kind of the Democrat side, and Steven Mnuchin for the White House and kind of the Republican side. Those two really haven't met too much lately to discuss stimulus talks. They've met to discuss the budget shortfall and basically the renewal of the budget so that the government won't get shut down at the end of September. But they just resumed stimulus negotiations, it sounds like, from some things that we're hearing. And yesterday, Nancy Pelosi was on CNN's State of the Union and expressed optimism that they can get a deal done when she said, "I think we have a chance to get something done." And in addition to this, she also said, "When I have a conversation with the administration, it is in good faith. I trust Secretary Mnuchin to represent something that can reach a solution, and I believe we can come to an agreement." So it does sound like that she's hopeful that they can come to agreement. From what we've heard, they did resume talks last Friday when they called they had a phone conversation to discuss the next stimulus package. I'm sure they were discussing what the House of Representatives is coming up with and some of the details. In addition to this, Nancy Pelosi's spokesman Drew Hamill said in a tweet, "The two agreed to continue their conversation in the days ahead." So that's great news if Nancy Pelosi and Steven Mnuchin can start meeting once again frequently to discuss the next stimulus package. Of course, it does not mean that a stimulus deal is imminent because the two sides are still about $1 trillion apart. The White House and the Trump administration has said that they could come down to about $1.5 trillion, while Nancy Pelosi and the House of Representatives are said to be releasing that $2.4 trillion plan. So that's still $900 billion apart. But the good news, at least I think it's kind of good news, is that if they have details on what the $2.4 trillion means or what would be included in that plan, then they can go line by line and decide on what they agree and what they don't agree, and then they can just hammer out the details of what they don't agree on. If they didn't have any details, which they haven't for quite a while, then it's hard to disagree and agree and figure out which parts of a plan that you that they agree on and they can move forward on. This week we'll be watching to see how those negotiations go, and we'll be watching to see what's in that $2.4 trillion plan. So last week, billionaire Mark Cuban, who's one of the stars of Shark Tank, he's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks and just a well-known billionaire, he proposed that we should be receiving $1,000 stimulus checks every other week until the end of November. Part of the deal with this would be that if you don't use that $1,000 every 2 weeks, then you would lose it. Basically, it's meant to spur spending and to get people spending once again. This is just a proposal that he came up with. It has no merit and there's nothing in the House or the Senate, but it was something that he was basically saying, hey, the economy still needs help. There are a lot of people out there that are still struggling, and this $1,000 every 2 weeks would help people out. One of the things he said to CNBC this week was, those without help are struggling badly and we need to get them help. And I think pretty much everyone would agree with that there are a lot of people out there still struggling and that they do need some help of some sort. In addition to this, he said, the whole goal is to get that money every 2 weeks into the economy. Once businesses start having demand, even if they're closed and working online, then there is a reason for them to be able to bring back employees and retain those employees if demand is sustained. So basically he's trying to say, let's get this economy going again. Let's get businesses that have been closed, let's get them some money, but not just bailouts, but actually get people spending money again in their businesses so that they can rehire employees that have been let go or furloughed. Like I was saying, there is not a deal or a plan in place in Congress that is anything like what Mark Cuban is proposing, but I thought it was an interesting option and interesting to see that he is suggesting that the economy needs help. There's a lot of people that are saying that and suggesting that, so maybe that will build some pressure on the House and the Senate to actually get a deal done. So if Nancy Pelosi and Steven Mnuchin can reach a deal, what could the timeline be for a second stimulus check? Remember, there is not a second stimulus check deal that has happened yet. They are still working on it. Hopefully, they can negotiate something, and the earliest they could negotiate something would be this week. If the House of Representatives votes on a stimulus plan and can pass it by October 2nd. Now I'm going to show you a timeline that's from cnet.com, and I'll include the link to this timeline in the description below. But this timeline shows kind of best case scenario and some of the scenarios if Congress passes a plan by a certain date, then this is when we could expect stimulus checks. So if they pass something by October 2nd, that would be this week. If the House of Representatives votes on it and passes it on Friday, then the Senate would vote on it the following Monday, which is October 5th. If that were to happen, then President Trump could sign it October 6th. If that happens, we could then receive the first stimulus checks out the week of October 12th. Obviously, that timeline is very short and very quick. Basically, everything would have to fall into place perfectly. The House of Representatives would have to approve that plan this week, which could actually happen. That one I think could happen. The Senate agreeing to what the House does is really the big question. Is the Senate going to agree to what the House proposes and comes up with? That's a huge question mark because the Senate and the House have been so far apart. But like I've said in previous videos, if the Senate can just get a few Republicans on board with one of these plans, then I think the Democrats will fall in line with whatever Nancy Pelosi has proposed and suggested. That's the big key. And I think Nancy Pelosi, like I've said, she wields all the power in these negotiations because basically whatever she says, the Democrats will follow. That would basically have the House of Representatives on board, and it would have a lot of the Senate on board as well. And all they would have to do is get a few Republicans in the Senate to approve it as well. And then President Trump would sign it, and we could get this next stimulus package. If they don't reach a deal by the October recess, which is coming up in the next 2 weeks, then it could be pushed back into December. And the earliest that they could vote on something is early December. So these next 2 weeks are critical, and it seems like every one of these weeks is critical as we're coming down to crunch time. So once they go on recess in October, they're going to be campaigning for the November election. That's why I don't think they're going to stick around in October for too long. However, they have said that if a deal can be reached, that the House and the Senate can come back into Washington to actually vote on a plan and approve a plan if a deal is reached. That's kind of the timeline. The best case scenario is the 12th of October, the week of the 12th of October, the second stimulus check could go out. But that's only if they reach a deal this week and if the Senate signs it right after the House approves it. Then President Trump will sign it and then the stimulus checks could come out. I don't foresee that happening, but hopefully they feel the pressure and Congress can just get together and get something done and say, okay, look, we really need some help to the American people. Let's get a deal done. I will keep you up to date and let you know how that goes. So for those of you that have not received your first stimulus check, if you are a non-filer, there are 2 deadlines, one of which is coming up this week. On September 30th, if you have not filled out the non-filers tool and you do not file taxes, you have to fill it out if you have dependents that you have to add for your stimulus check. The first stimulus check gave $500 for child dependents under the age of 17. So if you haven't claimed dependents and you haven't filled out the non-filers tool and you do not file taxes, you must file a non-filers form before September 30th. So that's in 2 days. If you are a non-filer and you do not have any dependents that you need to add, your deadline is October 15th. So that's it for the first stimulus check. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you once again for watching. I do hope you have a wonderful day and a great week, and I will talk to you again soon.